Ladies and gentlemen, every day we wake up with one of the most powerful tools ever created already in our possession, our mind. It is the battlefield of your life, the engine of your destiny, and the filter through which you experience everything. But here's the truth. Most people let their mind control them instead of learning to control their mind. Your thoughts can either build you or break you. They can lift you into a life of abundance, joy, and achievement, or they can chain you in fear, doubt, and mediocrity. The choice is yours, but only if you learn to take control. The greatest victories are not won in the boardroom, on the stage, or even on the field of competition. They are won in the quiet, daily battles inside your head. And if you can conquer that space, if you can take command of your thoughts, emotions, and focus, then there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that can stop you. Today, I want to give you 3 powerful keys to controlling your mind so you can take charge of your life. Every single day you are bombarded with millions of pieces of information. Sounds, sights, emotions, memories, thoughts, expectations. Your mind is constantly being flooded. And yet, out of that chaos, your brain chooses only a handful of things to truly notice. That choice is focus. What you choose to focus on determines what you feel, what you believe, and ultimately how you act. The secret is simple but powerful. If you want to change your life, you must change where you direct your focus. Think about this. 2 people can experience the same event, but one feels empowered while the other feels crushed. The difference isn't the event, it's the focus. If you're always focusing on what's missing, you'll live in a constant state of lack. If you're always focusing on what's wrong, you'll feel defeated before you even begin. But if you choose to direct your mind toward what's possible, what's working, and what's within your power, you ignite a completely different emotional state, and that state fuels action. Focus is like a magnifying glass. Point it at weeds, and they'll grow stronger in your life. Point it at seeds of opportunity, and they'll bloom into possibilities. The truth is, most people have been conditioned to focus on survival, on problems, on fears. That's the default programming of the mind. But champions, leaders, and unstoppable individuals train themselves to deliberately shift that focus. They don't wait for circumstances to change before they feel better. They change their focus first, and the world follows. Have you ever noticed how, when you buy a new car, suddenly you see that same model everywhere on the road? That's the power of focus. Those cars were always there, but now your brain is tuned to notice them. Life works the same way. If you focus on negativity, you'll find proof everywhere. If you focus on opportunity, you'll see chances where others only see obstacles. The world hasn't changed, your focus has. Directing your focus isn't just about positive thinking. It's about strategic thinking. It's about asking, what do I want to create? Where do I want to go? What do I want to feel? And then deliberately aiming your mental energy toward it. Because what you focus on grows and what you ignore withers. If you feed your fears, they expand. If you feed your vision, it becomes inevitable. Here's the challenge. Your mind will naturally drift toward what's familiar, and often that's fear, doubt, and problems. Left unchecked, your focus becomes hijacked by worst-case scenarios. But here's the empowering truth. You are the director of your mental movie. You get to choose what scene plays in your head. You get to decide whether you're replaying failures or rehearsing victories. The question is, are you consciously directing that movie, or are you letting it run on autopilot? When you decide to master your focus, you begin to master your destiny. Think about it. Every breakthrough in history came from someone who chose to focus not on the obstacles, but on the vision of what could be. Inventors, leaders, pioneers, they all had countless reasons to quit endless problems in their path. But their focus was locked on possibility, and that focus gave them strength. When your focus is clear, your actions become unstoppable. Ask yourself right now, what do I focus on the most in my life? Do I focus on what I can't control, or do I lock in on what I can? Do I focus on what's missing, or do I focus on what's already here? Do I focus on fears, or do I focus on opportunities? The quality of your answers reveals the direction of your life. Because your emotions, your decisions, your relationships, they all flow from the river of your focus. Let's make this real. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and instead of immediately focusing on stress, problems, and obligations, you ask yourself, what's great about my life right now? What can I be grateful for? What's exciting about the day ahead? That single shift in focus would transform your entire experience. The external world hasn't changed, but your inner world has. And when your inner world changes, everything you do changes. Directing your focus isn't about ignoring reality. It's about choosing how to experience reality. Pain exists, challenges exist, setbacks exist, but you have the power to decide what part of that reality you will emphasize. Will you focus on the lesson in the pain, the opportunity in the challenge, the strength in the setback? Or will you focus on the suffering, the limitation, the loss? That choice makes all the difference between living a life of power or a life of paralysis. Focus is also contagious. When you walk into a room with energy, passion, and certainty, people feel it. Why? Because your focus is radiating out of you. The reverse is also true. Walk into a room focusing on your stress and worry, and that energy spreads like wildfire. Leaders understand this. The way they direct their focus doesn't just shape their life, it shapes the lives of everyone around them. And here's the kicker. You are always focusing on something. The question is, are you focusing by design or by default? If you don't take control, the world will decide for you. Media, social platforms, other people's opinions. They will hijack your focus and drown you in noise. But when you consciously take back that steering wheel, you reclaim your freedom, you reclaim your power. So how do you take control? It starts with awareness. Notice what you focus on throughout the day. Catch yourself when your mind is obsessing over problems and redirect it toward solutions. Catch yourself when you're focusing on scarcity and shift to gratitude. Train your brain like an athlete trains muscles. It's not about perfection, it's about practice. Every time you redirect your focus, you're strengthening your ability to control your inner world. Because here's the truth, your destiny is shaped in moments of focus. The moment you choose to see the possibility instead of the problem, you open doors that were invisible before. The moment you choose to focus on gratitude instead of fear, your entire emotional state shifts, and new actions become available. Your focus creates your feelings drive your actions, and your actions carve the path of your life. Direct your focus, and you direct your future. There is a voice inside your head that never stops talking. Sometimes it's cheering you on, sometimes it's tearing you down, sometimes it's whispering fears, and sometimes it's shouting possibilities. That voice, your inner dialogue, shapes your reality more than any outside force ever could. The way you speak to yourself creates the lens through which you see the world, and if you don't master that voice, it will master you. Think about it for a moment. When you fail, what does that voice say? Does it scream, "You're not good enough, you'll never make it"? Or does it remind you, "This is a lesson, this is fuel, this is just part of the journey"? That single difference determines whether you rise or whether you retreat. The truth is, the story you repeat to yourself becomes your truth. And if that story is filled with doubt, your life will reflect doubt. If that story is filled with power, your life will reflect power. Your inner dialogue is like the thermostat of your mind. No matter what's happening outside, it will pull you back to the level you've set for yourself. If you constantly tell yourself you're not worthy, you'll sabotage opportunities. If you constantly affirm your ability, you'll rise into moments you never thought possible. Words don't just describe your life, they direct your life. Every "I can't" locks a door, every "I will" breaks it open. Here's the catch. Most people don't even realize how toxic their inner dialogue has become. They say things to themselves they would never say to a loved one. They insult, belittle, and doubt themselves on autopilot. And then they wonder why they feel stuck. But the truth is, you can't plant weeds in your garden every day and then expect roses to grow. If your words are poison, your results will reflect it. If your words are power, your results will expand. The incredible thing is this: you have the ability to rewrite that script. Just like editing a movie, you can edit the soundtrack of your mind. You can interrupt destructive patterns by consciously changing the words you use. Instead of "I'm overwhelmed," try "I'm stretching and growing." Instead of "I'm failing," try "I'm learning." Instead of "I'm not enough," Try I am becoming more every single day. Those shifts may seem small, but they create massive changes in your emotional state. Because here's the truth, language creates emotion, and emotion drives action. When you tell yourself you're broken, you feel powerless. When you tell yourself you're resilient, you feel unstoppable. That shift in emotion leads to a shift in behavior. Suddenly you're taking risks, pursuing opportunities, stepping into courage. Not because the outside world changed, but because your inner dialogue did. Imagine your mind as a radio station. If you're tuned into the frequency of fear, all you'll hear are doubts and limitations. But if you retune to the frequency of possibility, suddenly the same world looks full of hope, resources, and pathways. The world didn't change, you did. The way you speak to yourself is the dial that sets your entire experience. And here's the beauty, repetition rewires. The more you speak empowering words to yourself, the more your brain accepts them as truth. Neuroscience has shown us that your brain literally creates new connections when you repeat new stories. That means you are not a prisoner of your old dialogue. You are the author of a new one. And the more you rehearse it, the more natural it becomes until one day, confidence is no longer an act. It's your default state. But let's be real. Changing your inner dialogue is not about lying to yourself or pretending life is perfect. It's about choosing words that empower you to act even in the face of imperfection. It's not everything is fine. When it isn't, it's I have the strength to get through this. It's not I'll never fail again. It's failure makes me stronger. It's not about fantasy, it's about focus. It's about choosing the story that fuels action instead of fear. You've seen this before. Athletes before a game talking to themselves, pumping themselves up with affirmations. Leaders before a speech repeating words of certainty. Why? Because they know their words create their state, and their state creates their performance. You don't need to be on a stage or in a stadium to apply this. You can do it every single morning in front of the mirror. Every time you're faced with a decision, every time fear creeps in. Ask yourself right now, what's the dominant story you've been telling yourself? Is it a story of limitation or liberation? Is it a story of weakness or strength? Because whether you realize it or not, you've been rehearsing that story for years. And here's the wake-up call. The story you rehearse is the life you live. If you don't like the life, you must rewrite the story. This is where awareness meets power. The moment you catch yourself saying, I can't, and replace it with, I will find a way. You've shifted the course of your future. The moment you hear the voice of doubt and drown it out with words of certainty, you've changed your trajectory, and every time you do it, you reinforce a new identity, the identity of someone who refuses to be defeated by their own mind. Because in the end, it's not the outside world that stops most people. It's the war inside. The greatest chains are not physical, they're mental, but chains can be broken, and the key is in your mouth. Master your words, master your emotions, master your actions. It all begins with that inner dialogue. Speak life and life will answer. Speak strength and strength will show up. Speak vision and vision will manifest. So as you stand in the middle of your journey, remember this. The most important conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. And if you can master that voice, if you can turn it from critic to coach, from enemy to ally, then there is nothing in this world that can stop you from stepping into the life you are meant to live. Your mind is not a static machine. It's a living, breathing, adaptable force that responds to whatever you feed it most often. Just like your muscles grow with consistent training, your mind becomes conditioned by the thoughts, emotions, and habits you repeat. The tragedy for most people is that they condition their minds by accident. They rehearse fear every day, they practice doubt every morning, they repeat scarcity every night, and then they wonder why their lives are stuck. The truth is, what you practice mentally, you become physically. Think of your brain as fertile soil. Every thought you plant is a seed. If you repeatedly plant seeds of worry, you'll harvest anxiety. If you repeatedly plant seeds of gratitude, you'll harvest joy. If you repeatedly plant seeds of vision, you'll harvest success. The soil doesn't argue, it doesn't reject. It simply produces whatever is planted and watered the most. The question is, Are you intentionally sowing the seeds that will grow the life you want? Repetition is the mother of skill. You cannot think one empowering thought today and expect your life to transform tomorrow. Just like one trip to the gym won't sculpt your body, one positive affirmation won't reshape your destiny. Mastery requires conditioning. It requires daily, deliberate, disciplined repetition until new patterns become automatic. You don't want to just think empowering thoughts. You want them so ingrained that they become who you are. Consider the way a professional athlete trains. They don't just practice when they feel like it. They practice whether it's convenient or not. They drill the same move thousands of times until it becomes second nature. Why? Because in the moment of pressure, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of training. Life works the same way. When stress, fear, or challenges hit, you won't magically think empowering thoughts. You'll fall back on the conditioning you've built. That's why repetition is non-negotiable. But here's the powerful part. Conditioning your mind isn't about willpower alone. It's about creating rituals that anchor you. Gratitude rituals, morning routines, empowering affirmations, visualization exercises, meditation practices. These are not fluff. They are the gym for your mind. Each repetition strengthens your mental muscles, rewires your brain, and builds an identity of certainty, resilience, and strength. Visualization is a perfect example. When you repeatedly imagine your goals as if they've already been achieved, your brain begins to accept that image as reality. It builds neural pathways that align your body and mind toward that vision. That's why elite performers visualize their success over and over again. They're conditioning their minds to expect victory, and when your mind expects victory, your actions align to create it. Gratitude works the same way. If you wake up every day and deliberately practice gratitude, you're training your mind to focus on abundance rather than lack. At first, it may feel forced, but with repetition, it becomes natural. Soon your brain automatically scans for what's right instead of what's wrong. That conditioning doesn't just change your mood, it changes your relationships, your opportunities, your entire quality of life. The challenge is that the world around you is conditioning you to. Media, negativity, complaints, gossip, these things are repeated daily in the environment, and without awareness, they become your conditioning. That's why it's vital to guard your mental environment. Surround yourself with empowering voices, uplifting communities, and positive influences, because what you consume consistently becomes who you are. Repetition doesn't just come from you, it comes from everything you allow into your mental space. Think about a child learning language. They don't hear a word once and master it. They hear it hundreds, even thousands of times until it sticks. The same principle applies to your beliefs. You may intellectually know you're capable, but unless you repeat it, embody it, and rehearse it daily, it won't stick at the level of identity. You must condition the belief until it's no longer what you're trying to think. It's simply who you are. Conditioning also builds resilience. When life knocks you down, the untrained mind collapses, but the conditioned mind bounces back. Why? Because it's been trained through repetition to see setbacks as setups, failures as feedback, obstacles as opportunities. That response isn't luck, it's conditioning. It's the product of rehearsing empowering meanings over and over until they are automatic in the face of adversity. And here's the secret. You're already conditioning your mind every day, whether you realize it or not. The question is, what are you conditioning it with? Every complaint conditions you. Every excuse conditions you. Every moment of procrastination conditions you. But so does every affirmation, every act of courage, every moment of gratitude, every bold decision. You are either training your mind to limit you or to liberate you. Repetition creates identity. The more you repeat a behavior, the more you believe that's who you are. If you repeatedly say, "I'm disciplined," and back it up with action, you begin to see yourself as disciplined. If you repeatedly visualize yourself succeeding, you begin to see yourself as a winner. Identity is not fixed, it's conditioned. And once you lock in an empowering identity, your actions align effortlessly because you no longer have to force yourself. You simply act in accordance with who you believe you are. This is why consistency is more powerful than intensity. Anyone can get inspired for a day, motivated for a week, or disciplined for a month. But the real breakthroughs come when repetition turns into lifestyle, when your empowering rituals are no longer something you do, but something you are. That's when the mind stops being a battlefield and becomes a weapon. That's when you stop fighting yourself and start flowing with power. So condition your mind with intention. Repeat the thoughts, words, and actions that align with your highest vision. Practice them daily until they become automatic. Because the life you dream of isn't built in a single moment. It's built in the repeated conditioning of your mind. And when your mind is conditioned for victory, your destiny becomes inevitable.